takes two hands to clap. Serious allegations being leveled against corporate India that you're part of the problem, Mr. Bajaj. You fund the dishonesty.
Money, my friend, has a habit of saying this. He's anti-BJP and all that it stands for, anti-Narendra Modi, anti-corporate sector. I'm not impressed. Most of us have never said only politicians are corrupt. In fact, I'm on record to say to the media, giver and taker are equally guilty. So let's not make holier than thou. I do agree that individuals can be honest, but our system, the whole country knows is corrupt. To say that there is no corruption, whether Adarsh, whether 2G, whether CWG, whatever, what have you, that nobody is corrupt, I think it just makes no sense. Briefly, Rahul, as I think Praful said, let's start with something. State funding is a start. I can assure you it won't solve the problem. My father stood for 3 terms in Lok Sabha and won. In fact, 4 terms, 3 times he won, the 4th time he lost from my constituency, Wardha. It was very different. It was like what Praful was saying at that time. His father and my father were together. State funding, I think, is desired, one. Second, what I think Narendra Modi or somebody said here, I've been saying it also for years, simultaneous elections, at least to Parliament and Assembly, and only once in 5 years. The difficult decisions can be taken for 4.5 years. For 6 months, you can have soft decisions. I don't see why that is not being done. It may require a constitution change, but if BJP and Congress agree with that, that can be done. Third, not the election commission, because then it will come as to who is a criminal. Why do parties give money, give tickets to criminals? I don't know who's a criminal in a constituency far away, but people in that constituency know who is an undesirable character. But he's got muscle power, he's got money power. Most parties give tickets to such people. Expenses, say 25 lakhs is allowed for the parliament. Why can't that be monitored? Maybe you increase it a little bit, but then we say, what will the poor do? The poor can be financed with the party. Monitor that.
Okay.
People say we are honest. Don't, most of them, I won't say all, maybe money there is honest. Most of them come to Parliament giving a false affidavit that I spent only so much money.
All right.
Most of them spend more money than that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bajaj. We've got some more questions coming in from that side. The gentleman in the red shirt.
We are paying 30% income tax, and we are not very sure that the money is wasted or stolen away. Now, paying 2% of our income for political funding, or 3%, should not be a problem. Maybe a law could be passed that those who give 3% or 2% of their income for political process have some benefits. Just a question that perhaps, is it possible to do it or not?
Mr. Jaitley?
Well, I don't think you can mandatorily force anybody to make a political donation. After all, you are a liberal democracy. People may not want to donate to a political party. They may want to donate to a party which they agree with. And therefore, there can't be a compulsory extraction of money for political purposes. It's voluntary. The rule is that X percentage of your profits is the outer limit of what you can give, so that shareholders' money is arbitrarily not transferred. And what you give within that limit, you get a tax rebate to that extent. And I think that's a facility in law. I see no reason why people must not use that facility in law.
My question is to Mr. Manishankaraya. Debater to debater, I know that I'm committing harakiri asking you this question, but I couldn't let it go. You're talking about the role of the media. You know, it keeps getting reflected time and again. Would you or would you not agree that the nation was cumulatively masturbating with joy when CWG was happening, when Adarsh was happening, when the 2G scam was exposed, and the media played a very definitive role? Let's not talk about WikiLeaks. So my question is, A, does the media play a positive role in enforcing some sort of honesty amongst politicians? And if it is not the media that the politician is scared of, what is it that the politician is scared of? And B, why is the mainstream media blamed for doing stuff that is mainstream? We are not supposed to be the custodians of the honesty of the society. If people wanted to know what's going on in the Lok Sabha, they could tune into Lok Sabha TV. Why is it those mediums that do such investigative journalism don't survive in the national media? Blame the people, perhaps. Why are you blaming the media? Is it fair to blame the media, sir?
I think you're doing your job, but I don't think it's a job that is in the national interest if all you are interested in is following up WikiLeaks and not interested in my speech on tribal affairs. I assure you that if I take my clothes off in Parliament, you will have a photograph of me on the front page. I assure you that if I make a good speech, I'll be luckier than somebody who wins the pools to be able to get 4 lines in a paper. This is what I'm objecting to. The media is welcome to do whatever it is capable of doing. What I want is to see an improvement in the capacity of the media to take up constructive issues that affect the lives of millions upon millions of people and try and report those not only accurately but interestingly. You are entertainers. Please use your entertainment ability like the song and drama division of the INB tries to do by sending out messages. Please try to see how your creative genius can also be used in the constructive needs of the country and not just the destructive needs. Carry on with your destruction, but please also have the ability to deal with constructive issues. Why can't you? Have you had one discussion on the 12th plan? Isn't it something you should be talking about? Should it not be something that you make interesting? But no, WikiLeaks is ready-made, kisi ko bhi jhado. But when it comes to things that matter to billions of people, millions of people in India, close to 1 billion, somehow your creative genius just dries up.
I'm Sudhir Jalan. We have been skirting the issue of corruption in politics by talking of electoral funding. I think the issue is far bigger. The funding in politics, the corruption in politics is not only for election. I would like to have the comments of the panelists.
Mr. Patel, since you said that honesty is relative, maybe you could answer that.
But to begin with, money, you don't spend money in the elections. I'm sure your party spends for you. I'm sure that's something which we must keep in mind, because at the end of the day, whether you like to admit it or not, elections and the political process is driven by money. But to answer the question of Mr. Jalan, I think, you see, it's not just about relativity. The question is, you have to have a beginning somewhere. We all, as everybody here acknowledge, that tali do haath se bajti hai. It is not only the responsibility of the politician alone to ensure that there is cleanliness or good conduct in public life. It is also of civil society, business houses, everybody put together. So a beginning has to be made somewhere, and I think there's no harm in exploring and trying to take a step forward. Instead of just thinking and debating and discussing all night as we do in India for most of the things, I think a positive step in the right direction is needed.
I'm Haritma from JP University, and my question to Mr. Arun Jaitley is, do you think the negative politics will lead to which has been going in our country since so long, will lead to the development of a nation?
Well, I don't know what you refer to as negative politics.
Sir, it's basically related to CWG, 2G
Yeah, please allow me to answer. You see, developmental politics has its own space. And therefore, if Mani wants to read about the 12th plan or his own speeches on the 12th plan on other subjects, there are enough spaces in the media, senior journals, Lok Sabha television, the Rajya Sabha television, where he'll find sufficient space for that. There is also a larger framework for probity in public life. And every time issues of probity are raised, you can't be an ostrich and say, well, I didn't look at my neighboring constituency where DMK was distributing money. I didn't realize what was happening to Bofors in 1987. I didn't realize what was happening to 2G because I was only busy in my constituency and I don't do it. That money is not a very honest answer. That's not positive politics. That may be self-obsessed politics, but that is certainly not politics where you need a higher level of probity in public life.
Mr. Praful Patel, Prime Minister was here today in the morning with a series of scams besieging the government. People expected some words of reassurance. The Prime Minister looks very weak, unconvincing, and perhaps not paid enough attention to these problems. I have a very light question for you. What are cabinet meetings these days like? What do you really discuss in these meetings? Are you waiting for them to erupt, or how to deal with these problems?
What are your words of reassurance? I don't know in which way you can get reassured. I have no answer for that. But the fact is that I mean, come on, you not expected me to tell you about what happens in cabinet meetings for sure, not in a public debate like this. But the fact is, all of us have been in cabinet at some time or the other, so we know exactly cabinet meetings are serious business, and let's not belittle them. But the fact is, yes, there is so much happening, so much drama in the country, that yes, you do feel a little bit saddened by the developments, and therefore, I think the Prime Minister came in the morning. Now, what more do you expect him to say? How else does he reach out? He spoke about and answered every question which you asked. And to answer that whether the Prime Minister is saddened or is shaken, I think, of course, he's saddened, but he's certainly not shaken.
My question is to Mr. Arun Jaitley. Mr. Jaitley, you've made life very difficult for this government, and especially on 2G, on CWG, and now the WikiLeaks. Can you categorically state here that the BJP has never indulged in horse trading? And the reason I ask you this is because we have a tweet from Mr. Omar Abdullah, and he says, I'm really amazed at the BJP's holier-than-thou attitude, because I'm reminded of the approaches that were made in 1998 and 99. Your response, sir.
Well, thank you for telling me that we made life difficult for the government. I think that's why Mani is angry with us. But coming to Mr. Abdullah's tweet, I was told about it. I thought he was a part of our government in 98 and 99. Where was the question of wooing him? So I think, Javed, you should have been asking this question when you were already a part of the NDA government. Where was the need for NDA to woo you? This question really should not be addressed to me, but should be addressed to that illogical tweet.
James Lamont of the Financial Times. My question is for Mr. Patel. We've seen one highly successful Indian sector of the economy unravel, telecoms. Is there any reason for us to believe that other sectors might not unravel in the same way? And I wanted to ask you whether in your experience in the aviation sector, whether you have seen similar behavioral patterns in the relationship between the regulator and businessmen in the country.
I think the telecom sector has been seeing turbulent times, very much of volatility for the last 10 years or so. Every time something about telecom, you remember when the telecom licenses initially were issued, they were on a fixed license fee. Then they moved on to revenue share and whatnot. So the telecom sector has seen a lot of turbulence. In fact, I think it's not been finding its equilibrium, and there's been a lot of churning which has been going on. But to say that replicated across sector after sector, I think there are some clear-cut policies of the government, and I think there is a lot of, I think stability in the policies of the government, even in aviation or in any other sector for that matter. I don't think telecom should be, an aberration should be looked upon as a rule of misgovernance or some kind of something fundamentally going wrong.
My question is for Mr. Jaitley. We're discussing whether it's possible to be honest or not in Indian politics, and of all the panelists sitting on the podium, you said yes, you can be honest. I'm curious to ask you, have you ever told your Chief Minister in Karnataka, Mr. Yediyurappa, that there is merit in being honest?
Well, why only the Chief Minister of Karnataka? I think that's a principle that any political party, mine or anybody else, would be conveying to almost every important functionary of the party, particularly when he is in government. And let me tell you, whenever we find such charges being made, it disturbs us also. It is not that we become suddenly immune to it or we all rise up in defense. We put our heads together, try and investigate that, and try and see if we can even have internal mechanisms to check them up. But let me at the same time tell you, I have checked up those facts. I'm not going to get into details of defending or not defending them. Apply the same yardsticks to what is happening elsewhere in the society today. And I'm sure, Harinder, you know what I'm referring to. This whole institution of cultivating politicians by large transactions through their families and children, I think is a matter of concern. You invest political equity into important political persons, and this will bring political dividends. I think it is this trend which now is going to be a bigger concern as far as polity is concerned. And this is going to leave its imprint behind if we don't check it up at the very initial stages.
But Mr. Jaitley, if I could, you say that this is a larger trend where family members are benefiting and that's what governance has come down to. But the question is, you asked for and got the resignation of Ashok Chavan, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, and that you demanded on an urgent basis. However, in the case of Mr. Yedurappa in Karnataka, even though the principle is the same and you're admitting it, yet no action has been forthcoming from your party, sir.
Let me tell you, you've had cases where you've had agencies, bodies come to a finding on the subject. And therefore, we've acted, other parties have acted. Now, merely because a charge is made, you ipso facto don't say you resign on that ground. Therefore, let this matter be investigated, and it is being investigated. The last word on it has not been said as yet. And therefore, to say that, well, somebody in the media said so, and therefore you must resign itself may not be sufficient. Let this be investigated. It is being investigated.
I'd like to endorse these words of wisdom that have come from Mr. Jaitley's mouth, but please remember it applies on the other side as well. Mere charges, mere allegations do not constitute conclusive proof. All charges that your side have been making in Parliament while stopping our democratic institutions from functioning are being investigated and have in some cases led to actual prosecution. I think the stand of the BJP on one, Yediyurappa, and two, Narendra Modi, reveal what a completely hypocritical establishment you represent.
Which charge has not been established? You have the CAG, which has made a damning indictment of your government on 2G.
An indictment, you're a lawyer.
Yes, yes.
An indictment
A
does
damning
not
indictment
amount.
of your government.
It does
It
not.
is not
An
a charge,
indictment
it's an indictment.
is not a conviction.
Now, please listen to others.
You're a
Mani.
lawyer. An
Please listen to
indictment
others.
cannot be a conviction.
It's a damning indictment.
What
Now the revelations which have come up indicate
It's
that
damning
3
if
years.
it applies to the Congress, and it is holy
It
if it
certainly
applies to
applies
you.
to the Congress.
It's not a question of
that
holier
what
than
was-
thou, but unholier than thou.
What was said 3 years ago, if the Prime Minister had acted then, the CBI would not have had to do now what the CBI is doing in that particular
If only 7 years ago,
Therefore-
when thousands of Muslims were being killed in Gujarat, if your favorite, I don't think he's your favorite, but their favorite, this Narendra Modi, had been hauled up, and the papers told us that you personally were involved in telling Mr. Vajpayee, no, let's go easy on Mr. Modi. I need an answer on that.
I'll
I
give you an
think
answer.
it's much worse
Mani,
to kill innocents
Mani, since you
than
asked-
to take a few rupees.
Since you asked for an answer, would you treat your favorite 1984 government of Mr. Rajiv Gandhi for the massacre it did on the same footing? You haven't spoken a word about it in the last 30 years.
I would.
You have
I
not
would.
done it.
I
You
would.
have not done it.
I
and you
would.
know,
I have
accountability
done
to the
it.
people for that.
I have done
And
it.
let me tell you.
I have done it,
Let
Arun.
me-
I have done
let-
it
just
again
permit
and
me-
again. I have
just permit
explained
me-
this in several
permit me-
articles I've written. It's
Yeah.
unfair of you to suggest
let me try
that
and
I have been
understand it.
ducking this question.
I pose the
but it's
question
fair
to you.
of me to say
I-
that you have been ducking the question of
Okay.
Narendra Modi's murders
My
completely for the last
my
7
two
years.
last sentences to you are, in 1984 in Delhi, you had thousands of people massacred, the police didn't fire once. In Gujarat, 300 people died in police firing. Do you realize this?
Yeah, and how
I'm not
many
justifying
thousands
what
were
happened
killed?
in Gujarat, but don't forget the track record. How many people have you convicted in the last 27 years as far as Delhi is concerned? Therefore, don't preach these standards to others, since you yourself have been a
I am
privy to a
asking
Prime
you for
Minister who had a
Yediyurappa,
scandalous
and
record
I'm
of
asking
this.
you for Narendra Modi. You answer those, and then we may be able to
are-
move to a higher level of integrity.
Aren't you all missing being members of parliament and joining politics after this?